Alright, this is going to be an update and forecast on the Marshall Fire in Colorado. If you aren't aware, the Marshall Fire has grown to more than 1,600 acres. It started at about 11 a.m. this morning, and then due to some wind gusts actually getting up to 110 miles per hour, it quickly grew to 1,600 acres. As of right now, we've had about 600 structures destroyed, and there are currently evacuations in Superior, Louisville, and Broomfield. So throughout this video, we're just going to look at all the most recent information, and then we're also going to look at the fire weather forecast over the next 24 hours to see what might happen to this wildfire as we move forward. So just looking at the map right here, you can see when and where this wildfire pops up in Colorado. I'll zoom in here. You can see it starts at about 11 a.m. and then you know it's it's winds coming from the west, so easterly winds, because you notice how that smoke quickly travels to the east right there. So just clicking play again, you can see where it pops up, and then just a large amount of smoke coming off of that throughout the day today, and unfortunately it is still burning, and you can actually see that by looking at the natural color fire map right here. We'll just fast forward and you'll be able to actually see where you see that red color shows where the Marshall Fire actually is. And even as we get into the overnight hours, it is still burning, although there is some good news when we look at the fire weather forecast, as some of those winds that caused that rapid growth earlier in the day are starting to die down. Now, the first thing I should say is there are still some current evacuations going on in Superior, Louisville, and Broomfield. You can see that on this map right here. That red color represents where it's a mandatory evacuation, meaning leave the area now. If you are in that yellow color, it's an evacuation warning, which means get ready to leave. Now, you might not be watching this video live, you most likely aren't, so know that I put this link in the description of the video, and it's always important to stay updated on the most recent evacuation warnings and orders. So if we want to actually look at where this fire is, you can see it based on these red dots right here. Again, take these red dots somewhat with a grain of salt. It is heat signatures being picked up by a satellite in space, so it's not exact right here, and the fire map I'll show later is even less exact, but we'll get to that when we come to it. Just wanted to show this map mainly to give a broad view of where that fire is, where you see those red dots. You can see the key cities we're looking at, Superior right there. And then if we zoom out, you can see Broomfield where that other evacuation warning is, Louisville. And then if you look to the northwest, you can see Boulder up there, and then Denver down to the southeast. So you can see right where that fire is. And with this map, we'll actually be able to see how it's moved over the last couple of hours. So again, that's Boulder up towards the northeast. We have Superior right here. Those red dots represent where the heat was being picked up by the satellites. And then if we switch to all satellites, we can get a more live view of what's going on. Now, before I click this button, know that this is not exact, so don't panic if you live in an area that is currently under where you see this heat signature right here. I've seen in the past, and especially throughout this last wildfire season, that this could be off by as much as 1 to even 5 miles in some cases, but it does give us a general view of the direction that the fire is moving. So, as I said, the winds were mostly blowing from the west today, so it's actually not a surprise that the fire was moving towards the east, and then we've started to see the winds shift a little bit more, coming from a more southerly direction. I think we'll actually be able to see that. If I click right there, you can see the winds have shifted to a more southerly direction now, so it makes sense that we're seeing fire growth more towards the north as we've seen more of those recent squares popping up in the last few hours. So again, just going over all of that, that's where the heat signatures were being picked up by the earlier satellites. This is showing where we've seen some of the growth recently. The reason for that is because those winds are blowing mostly from the east, or blowing from the west and the south, pushing that fire up towards the northeast. But the big thing to remember on this map, those signatures right there aren't exact, so take that with a grain of salt. Now the big question is, how did we get a fire growing to 1,600 acres at the very end of December? This is certainly not the peak of wildfire season. It's almost the exact 180 opposite of wildfire season. But there's a few different factors that all came together to make this fire happen and lead to some of the just devastation that we have seen throughout the day. First one is that it's been a fairly dry winter in this area of Colorado. Just looking at the drought monitor here, you can see Colorado is one of the driest places in the United States. If we zoom in even farther, you can see almost the entire state in that severe drought category, and then where we have this fire right about here is actually in the extreme drought category. So very dry fuels in this area, but even more importantly were what happened with the winds throughout the day today. So that's at about 7 a.m. and just so we know exactly what we're looking at here, we'll zoom in here. You can see Marshall Lake, which is right on the kind of southwestern side of this fire. If we zoom in on this map, you can see I picked the winds to be right over Marshall Lake because that's, again, close to where this fire is located. 7 a.m. this morning, we had some 25-mile-per-hour wind gusts, so already starting the day off with some gusty winds. And then as we move throughout the morning, again, that's 10 a.m., about the same time that this fire started. It's reported it started about 11 a.m., but you can see those gusts get up to 53 miles per hour. And then as we go into 1 p.m., up to 54 miles per hour. 4 p.m., you're still seeing those gusts over 50 miles per hour. And then as late as 7 p.m., still seeing those gusts up above 40. And this is just based on model data. We were seeing some actual observations of wind gusts up to 110 miles per hour. And then the other key thing to look at when we're looking at the winds, you notice it's coming from the west, so it makes sense why this fire was able to move to the east into places like Superior and then leading to those evacuation warnings in Louisville as well. Now, if we want to look at the current winds, we can click on this weather station in Superior. This is going to be actual data based on the weather station in this area telling us exactly what's going on. Looks like this weather station has been consistently picking up about 30 mile per hour winds since about 9 a.m. this morning. If we go look at the most recent, that's the temperatures right there, winds right here. So gusts to 12 miles per hour right now. Sorry about that. So earlier in the day, again, that's when we had our gustiest winds, some up to 38 miles per hour right there. But more recently, we're starting to see those winds taper off, seeing just gusts of 12 miles per hour at our most recent reading at 9:52 p.m. right there. So good to see that those winds do look to be tapering off, and that is actually what's going to be happening as we move forward into the forecast. As we get into 1 a.m. tonight, you can see those winds drop back down to 25 miles per hour, and that's looking at the gusts now. The observations we're just looking at were the sustained winds. And then as we go into tomorrow morning and then into tomorrow afternoon, not seeing those extreme winds return, just remaining around 10 to 20 miles per hour. So much less than we are seeing today, much reduced fire weather conditions, which is some great news there. Now, the other great news is that we actually have a system of cold air and possible snow moving into this area, which you can see with this purple and blue color right here, moving into Colorado. It's actually going to start moving in throughout the day tomorrow and then looks to be directly over the area on Saturday. So what that means is we're actually going to be seeing some cooler temperatures and some snow as well. So just to get our bearings again, so there's Marshall Lake right there. There's Superior. Denver is down to the southeast. So when you're looking at this map, you can see Denver right there. Think of the fire as just to the northwest of that location. So this is where some of the good news comes in. Again, this is the current map. You can see there is already snow building into the western parts of Colorado. And then as we get into about 8 a.m. tomorrow morning, we're seeing that snow creep closer. By 11 a.m., creeps even closer to Denver. And then by 2 p.m., it looks like it's over Denver, which means our fire, which is northwest of Denver, should be getting that snowfall by about maybe 12 to 2 p.m. tomorrow. The exact timing will likely change, but it's at least good to see that snow building in. Then it continues and actually gets a little bit heavier as we get into 5 p.m., all the way into 8, 11. So just consistently picking up snowfall until about 11 a.m. on Saturday. So just to go over that again, That snow will be moving into the exact same area where we have this fire at about 2 p.m. tomorrow afternoon, and then it's going to be lasting until about 11 a.m. on Saturday. How much snow are we expected to pick up? We can click through this map. If we are in that purple area right there, that could actually be over 6 inches of snow, maybe even up to a foot in some places. Looks like Denver getting 3.5 inches right there. So somewhere at any amount of snow is going to be good for this fire. So it's great to see how the conditions are going to change as we move forward. Another way to see that is by looking at the 7-day. We're going from those extreme wildfire conditions actually to a winter storm warning. You can see 30 to 80% chance of snow throughout the day Friday, and this is looking at the forecast for Louisville. And then Friday night, 100% chance of heavy snow and a low of 4 degrees Fahrenheit. If that doesn't stop this fire in its tracks, I don't know what will. So that is where some of the good news comes in. But again, if you're just tuning into this video, lots of bad news has come out of this area throughout the day today. It grew to more than 1,600 acres since about 11 a.m. this morning, has destroyed about 600 structures. 370 of those homes were in the Sagamore neighborhood, I might be pronouncing that wrong, and then 210 of those homes were reported in the Old Town Superior. We also reported 6 injuries, I believe it was burn injuries, but good news so far, not reporting any deaths, but we're just going to have to stay tuned to see how all those numbers change as we move forward. So overall, about as bad of wildfire conditions as you could have throughout the day today due to the dry fuels and wind gusts up to 110 miles per hour that allowed this fire to grow and become one of the most destructive in the history of Colorado. But the good news is cooler temperatures and snow is on the way, so we should see some great improvements in the conditions as we get into tomorrow. So number one thing that I'll end this video with is always stay updated with those evacuation warnings. We currently have those in place in Broomfield, Superior, and Louisville. I put the link for this in the description, so be sure to check that as you're most likely not watching this video live. So I hope this video was helpful, and thanks for watching.